morning. This is the Focus on Parliament show on Civic Space TV, brought to you by the Center for Constitutional Governance. I am Kwagala, your host. Now, there are growing calls in the country that Parliament should enact a law to check the ever-growing issue of the commercialization of politics. These hopes could eventually come to fruition if Parliament approves a proposal by the Cabinet to place a cap on the election campaign financing with respect to the country's political processes. I am now joined by a distinguished panel of esteemed personalities to discuss today's topic and help us to analyze what this proposed piece of legislation could mean and portend for the country's political landscape. I now have the pleasure and the honor to introduce them to you in no particular order. Mr. Muguzi Henry, the Executive Director of ACFIN. You're most welcome to the program, sir. Say hello to the viewers.
Thank you very much. Quite an honor for me to be here, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. And next to Mr. Henry is the respondent, Winnie. Winnie, you're most welcome to the program. Good to see you. It's been a while. Winfred Mugambwa is the Executive Director for Rights for Her, a civil society organization focused on women empowerment. It's a pleasure to see you, Winnie. Say hello to the viewers.
Thank you so much. Good morning, viewers. I'm happy to be here as always.
Thank you, Winnie. And of course, last but not least, is also a regular on the program, Mr. Apollo Tusiime, who is the Secretary General for the Uganda Parliamentary Press Association, our public watchdog in Parliament. Apollo, you're most welcome to the program.
Thank you, Isaac. It's always a pleasure being here, and good morning, our viewers. I'm looking forward to a fruitful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Apollo, for joining us. Henry, let me start with you. In the region, there are countries that have adopted this approach to regulating the elective politics, and they have gone forward to introduce pieces of legislation to check the aspect of commercialization of politics. But the question I want to ask, so that you put some context for the benefit of the viewers, is this piece of legislation actually necessary in Uganda? And if so, what will it achieve?
Thank you very much. You've chosen me for the difficult question. You should have directed that question to Apple.
Oh, Winnie.
So that I don't take the difficult question. Yeah, so here is the thing that, let me start by saying that we in Africa, we actually have no excuse. Because the challenges we are going through have already been gone through by other countries and their best practices. Okay? So we do not have to waste time reinventing the wheel. So the phenomena of politics being commercialized is a phenomena that comes when democracy, at a certain stage in the growth of democracy. The countries where democracy has already, taken root in Europe, in the United States, Canada, and Japan, and India, they already went through this, where at one time it was money that was controlling voter consent. It was those that had money that would get elected. When they get elected, they get into political office, they become very corrupt. They represent no one but their monies and themselves. So the first step they took was to enact legislation, and that's where now I go. So since 2016, I think we've been advising that, first of all, the cost of politics in Uganda was rising at a speed that is so astronomical that if nothing gets to be done, politics in Uganda is going to remain a preserve of the super rich. And there's a problem with the super rich. The reason that people become super rich is because they are not kind, not generous. They don't share with others. Those who share with others never grow rich because you get your 100K, you share with colleagues, it will never accumulate. These ones get 100, they keep it to themselves. Selfish, so they accumulate it. The others who accumulate the wealth are those that engage in activities that are dark and dirty. Now, so if you leave politics for the kind of such people, the citizen is going to suffer. So you need people have put in place laws, and these laws they have like 4 areas that they regulate. You mentioned one, but I will mention the others. So we categorize the areas for regulation as disclosure. So the law must be able to provide for disclosure requirements. It also must put caps. There must be bans. Certain things have to be banned. And then there should be reporting requirements. So for disclosure, for example, the law must require that all political parties and candidates that aim to participate in any election must disclose the source of the monies that they're going to use. Number 2, their budgets. The reason this is happening is that in many countries where democracy suffered like this, they discovered that the origin of most of the money that ended up financing politics was dubious. The money coming from dubious sources. The same thing is happening here. Most of the monies that finance elective politics that you see candidates and parties throwing around, this money is coming from very dubious sources. And some of these include corruption, some of these are pure financial crimes, some of these such as things you don't want to imagine, including from trafficking in drugs and all manner of illegal substance. So they must disclose. When they disclose it, because it is dark, that will be a check. So disclosure is one of them. Number 2 would be like the capping. So like you put a cap and say at the sub-county level, no candidate should spend above this. At the district level, no candidate should spend above this. At parliamentary level, no candidate should spend above this. So the other one on bans, they ban certain things. And I was happy when they mentioned one ban, banning, what is it called? Fundraisings. Because fundraisings has stood out as one of the drivers of the cost of politics in Uganda. When, like a year to go, like I think now already they have started, everybody that wants to build a church, wants to make a wedding, wants to build a community center, wants to do a football team, they are targeting those that are standing out to be candidates and inviting them to milk out almost blood from these men and women that want to offer themselves, making their life a living hell. So those bans have to be there. There must be bans on many things, including, I'll give you this one, including there are certain sources you can't get money from. You can't get money from cooperatives. You can't get money from, if you are in the government, you can't get money from a company contracted to government. For example, if you are NRM, the party in power, you cannot get a contribution from CCC, this Chinese company that does roads. But what happens in Uganda is that when election time comes, all those companies that are, what is it called, contracted to do business with the government contribute big time. You know what this means? It means therefore that then corruption comes into the picture. Because when they give the money, they will recoup it. How? So the next contract they will get will be through very fictitious circumstances. It will be inflated, and then they will deliver shoulder work to recover their money. At the end, the one who suffers is the voter. So those bans must be there. Then the last one is reporting, that after contesting, you report, so that you tell people what did you spend on what. Now to your question. So in the region, what is happening? So we have Tanzania. Tanzania has a good law. The problem with it is enforcement.
Why is that difficult?
And the problem with the enforcement is because they have a party that has been in office for a long time. So you have this party that is fused with the government, Chama cha Mapinduzi. Chama cha Mapinduzi has been in office from as far as almost from immediate after independence. It has captured everything. It has fused itself with every single element of the state. Chama cha Mapinduzi is the state, and the state is Chama cha Mapinduzi. So they can't in such circumstances, which is almost similar with ours. Kenya enacted a very good law, but after enacting it during the Kibaki regime, that parliament, the parliament that was come as they were going into the next election, they looked at it again. They discovered they will not be able to come back because of the stringent provisions of the law. You know, for most of our countries where corruption is the order of the day, everybody wants to do things that are dark. So Kenya did not implement it. But the best law you have in Africa today is with Nigeria. And Nigeria, it's called the enact Act. They made an amendment last year, immediately before the election that brought in Tinubu. So that law is a law everybody should look at. Unfortunately, by the time they passed it, it was too late for INEC to enforce it. So we are looking at INEC to enforce it in the next election. So these are the laws, but in countries countries like America, the entire Europe, Asia, the other time I was with the Carter Center in the Philippines to analyze how, with the gaps in their law, all these have campaign finance laws. The only way you are going to have to control commercialization of politics is to have a law in place. But of course, the law alone is not enough, in which case you have to talk about also other things, because laws by and of themselves cannot solve a lot. When it comes to campaign finance and the cost of politics, you need also other stakeholders, such as the voters. The voters of Uganda today are one of the highest, the other drivers of commercialized politics. Why? For them, they think that candidates are equivalent to government. So because the government of Uganda is consistently absent from the lives of the citizens, when they see candidates, then they see medical care, they see school fees, they see food, they see all manner of problems. So they impose a lot of demands on candidates, and that forces them to spend a lot. And when they spend a lot, then they have to go to political office, and the only way you can recoup that money is by engaging in corruption. So which is why we are seeing today political corruption is rising. There is no way you are going to recover your money through the salary you get as a political leader.
Thank you, Henry, for that context and background. Winfred, you are a voter, and Henry here has cited voters as being a core driver of the commercialized politics that we have in the country. But also, undeniably, what we know today as commercialized politics is, I think, just an offshoot of our retrogressive politics generally as a country. So how has this as a citizen and a voter affected you?
Thank you so much. When we say that voters are a problem, it means that state, government, politicians, everyone until to the grassroots, everyone is a voter. Because even the ones who stand in for positions are always voting.
The ones that you vote.
The ones we vote always vote themselves. So which means everyone is what? If I'm trying to summarize, the voter is a problem. It means everyone is a what? A problem. And we are looking at the member of parliament to enact a law. We have to also put at the back of our mind that we have lawmakers who are lawbreakers. They're going to put something in place. They will again find ways of again breaking it. And like how my colleague has said it, we need it. Yes, we need it. And how has it affected us? Of course, me as a citizen, we have seen, we are right now, in fact, we are in an era where we are seeing that we are having leaders, we are having leaders who are, most of them are dummies, yes? Because everything is commercialized, We are sending dummies to Parliament who can't even interpret the law, who can't even contribute to a discussion, who can't even stand on their own and speak truth to power. Yes? So we are just having so me as a citizen, having such people who can't even speak truth to power, even if I personally, or either one constituency is having a good member of parliament. Let's give an example. You've seen how long Honorable Secretary Chikubo has taken just to collect signatures of what? Of member of parliament. So it first of all affects us by sending poor quality, by sending leaders who are not even supposed to be leaders, just because they have money. Yes? Two, the infrastructures. Because those people have, they are there to represent us. But because they are dummy, they are looking at, okay, I put in money, I have to reap double. So it's like an investment. Most members of parliament, because they are putting in money, this has become an investment. It's a shop for them. So I've bought my sugar. These are the voters. So I have to make a profit. Instead of looking at the roads, how are we going to how, or even having better laws in place, or even helping, like if issues around hospitals they have been raised, how can we talk about that? You know, they're focusing on their investment. They're focusing on reaping profits from their investment, and it goes back to me, the voter. Yes, I get affected. It's me who is going. But when I said the voter, remember I told you everyone, because even if they might not be affected because they're earning much, they have a family member who is being affected. At one point, it gets back to them. So when I go to hospital, there is no medication, I be affected. You've seen the potholes, the roads are all over the country. We get affected. People in, we have people in different areas where even electricity, there is no electricity. There are very many problems. So around infrastructures, me as a voter, I get affected. The other thing is, how do I get affected? Like the young generation. You know, when it's all about money, everything is all about money. It is one driver of not having a democratic country, because now it means that people who have money will get those places, and then they'll accumulate more money, meaning that the young generation which is coming, those ones who want also to become leaders, who are passionate, who even have the brains, who even have, who might take the country ahead, are limited. Because now, for us, we need the money, the voters. We are used to being given money. So these young people, even if it's not, but the new blood, we need new blood, even if it's not a young person, but we always need new brains, new innovate, you know, whatever, every time you change either brains or have different people in a place, it means you're going to get diverse ideas. And when we have diverse ideas, the country develops more. But because these people who have the money are the ones accumulating the money, it is going to affect the next person who wants to do what? To get into the position. In the long run, it is affecting the country. When a citizen is affected, the country's security is affected, the country's growth and development is affected, and the country's relationship with international countries is affected. So as a voter, we are the government, we are the people in the government, we are the people everywhere. So a citizen, when a citizen is affected, the government is affected. But I also think the most problem here is the state, not the citizen. Yes, we have the problem, but at least most of the people would feel like who are bought are people who don't have money. This government and the state have really put a distance. Have tried so much to make us poor. So much, meaning that it is better for them to have a poor community or poor citizens so that they stay in power. So the main problem, however much we are contributing. Yes, we are receiving those things because people are poor. People don't have what to eat. Yes, just buying their votes is like, okay, I'm going to get something to eat. People don't have what to eat. The problem mostly is the state. Yes.
So you think the state has manufactured the problem to exploit it and perpetuate itself in power?
Yeah.
Okay. Apollo, without a doubt, commercialization of politics constitutes political corruption in a broad sense. But I want to ask, from a journalistic standpoint, and given that you have, at a broad level, interacted with politicians, with the institution of parliament, do you think that this proposed piece of legislation can actually cure some of those structural challenges that we have in our governance, context as a country?
Before we ask ourselves whether it will cure the problem or problems, I think it is important also to first ask ourselves whether it is possible even to have this legislation come to Parliament. I am one of few people who think that what happened in Chankwanzi was a political gimmick. It was the people who were proposing such a legislation were not so serious about what they were saying, because ultimately you have to look at who stands to benefit or who stands to lose if such a legislation is established or is introduced. If at all a legislation of that nature was to be introduced, we understand that the current crop of politicians we have may not have another chance to retain their offices. So in one or another, they will find a way of blocking such a legislation to be introduced in Parliament or elsewhere. So that's why I said before we actually interrogate whether such a legislation can eradicate the problem that we have, which is political corruption, bribery during and even after elections. But then we should also look back and see whether it can actually be introduced.
So there is no goodwill from the government?
To me, I think it will be another huge mountain to have such a legislation come to Parliament, even coming to Parliament. You also have to look at other interests in such a which are at risk in such an initiative to introduce such a legislation. My co-panelists talked about voters who are also the drivers of political corruption. And indeed, as we wait for 2026, we must have people who are now planning on 2026 to build either arcades or to drink a soda, just a soda, because an election is coming up. There are people who are preparing to be agents of big people in government and expect that they will buy cars from that campaign. I'm trying to bring out that huge picture of how many interests are at play, and those particular interests will affect establishment of such a legislation. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. The members of Parliament, for instance, that we have today, are busy now planning and amassing a lot of money to prepare for an election. So those are the people you're saying they should now prepare to receive a legislation, a bill, or a constitution amendment to have money removed out of politics. So that's where I started from, that even before we look at whether it will work, we have to also consider other factors. But yes, let me answer your question now. Whether it will work or not, I also am also doubtful whether it would work. Because if it comes to Parliament and it is passed, we have, and somebody, I think it is Henry, who talked about it. We have a number of legislations that have been enacted, but implementation zero. Actually, let me tell you what I think. What happened in Chankwazi retreat, I think, was intended to cool the tempers, to tell these people, the young people, send a message to the young people that, hey, you have an opportunity. Now we are planning to introduce a legislation that will bring or establish a level ground, and you will be able also to compete and possibly actuate your political ambitions. That's what I think. The people behind this whole thing, I think, we are not serious about what they are saying. So, even if it is introduced, well, like Henry says, introduces a cap on how much somebody must spend in elections, then it introduces bans and strong penalties. But who is ready to implement it? Tell me. I think it is even an analogy of a monkey and a forest. Because
that's an interesting, I think, remark you're making, Apollo. Are you therefore saying that the current crop of politicians in the country do not have the capacity to implement such a piece of legislation?
Exactly. You don't expect a politician, an incumbent politician who is in office, to support such a legislation. So that, because they know that they have many people who actually want to contest against them in the next election. So you expect them now to introduce and approve a law, a legislation that puts them in a more disadvantageous position. I don't think that is possible. And we've interacted with, we interact with members of Parliament, for instance, we who are in Parliament, who have access to Parliament. And you hear what they are saying. You can feel the sentiments. They are all looking at how to use money in the next election and come back. That is why, actually, you'll struggle. You will struggle to find members of Parliament in their constituencies now, because in their constituencies they have voters who are presenting obnoxious demands to their leaders, and they are always waiting at their gates or at their homes, waiting for handouts. So you'll find that a member of Parliament is not in the constituency, is not even in Parliament, but he's in Kampala here. So you ask yourself, and they are busy. They are not in Parliament just because they don't want to be there, or they don't have business there. They are busy chasing deals outside Parliament just because they want to get money to facilitate their next campaign. So it is like I said, an analogy of a monkey and a forest, even if it comes. Because I said it will not. They were not serious about what they were saying. But even if it is introduced, such a legislation is introduced to Parliament, because we hope that it will come from Cabinet, maybe, and then brought as a government bill to Parliament. But even if it is brought to Parliament, I don't see it finding the necessary support to go through in the current political circumstances.
Henry, you've listened to Apollo, very cynical in his attitude. He doesn't think that the current political establishment has sufficient goodwill and the capacity to facilitate the passage of that specific piece of legislation. But I want to ask the question, Let us also maybe analyze other jurisdictions that have successfully passed these pieces of legislation. For example, Western countries, those developed democracies, like the States, much of continental Europe, is it a question of, you know, democratic political evolution? Is it a question for the political consciousness of the citizens? What is it that exactly motivates democracies to adopt such groundbreaking pieces of legislation? Is it that we have not yet arrived as a country to that point?
So, good question, and the good submissions are quite challenging, so quite interesting as well. So Africa is at a level where this law is needed. One of the things I do on a routine basis is to keep analyzing the legislative frameworks, electoral frameworks of other countries in Africa. So outside of East Africa, of EAC, so Malawi has a good law that has campaign finance provisions. Lesotho, then South Africa, very good ones, especially on disclosure for political parties, because of them they have a party system. Botswana has provisions in their electoral law that regulate money in elections. Then you come up. Egypt has one, and then of course Nigeria has one. Ghana has one. Ghana is bad because Ghana, the voters, Ghana and Nigeria have a huge problem. Let me put it this way: the political parties themselves had become a problem of their own. To be nominated for a party, to be given a party flag in Ghana and Nigeria. In Nigeria, you have to pay 48,000.
Mandatory or bribe?
48,000 US dollars. In Ugandan shilling, that's excess of 200 million. 300
Some sort
million.
of nomination fee.
For nomination, like to get a flag,
yes,
a party flag. Ghana, it was 45. So it was worse, so they have this. So a number of countries now, and like I said, Nigeria now has a model law for Africa. Now, of course, it's true what Apple is saying. The difference between electoral laws and other laws is that even when the government is not interested in enforcing it, the candidates will use it against themselves. That is, the elections is the only activity where, even if government does not enforce the law, the candidates will.
So that brings out the reporting
you have a
component.
You overspend, they get correct information, they go to court. And use evidence, you went over the cap. And then the election is nullified. So they can do that. But the other one is that it's not the first time that Uganda, the Attorney General is introducing those provisions. He made a very good attempt in July 2019. Remember those 5 electoral amendment bills? So 3 of them had provisions on campaign finance. And especially he was looking at the issue of disclosure, not caps, but disclosure and reporting, those 2. We did improve on them with the committee. But the moment it came for the 3rd and final reading on the floor of Parliament, this is what they said. All these provisions are very good. And we did not know that campaign finance is such a laborious area of regulating. And we are seeing that the Attorney General has scattered these provisions into some in the Presidential Elections Amendment Act, and others in the Parliamentary Elections Amendment Act, others no government. We are recommending that government goes back and aggregates them into one comprehensive law that should be brought back to Parliament, but not this Parliament, the 11th Parliament. So they were there before. So in terms of will of government to take these provisions to Parliament, they've done this before. They will do it again. What lacked back in the day was the tone at the top. So the tone at the top wasn't there. The top was silent. I'm saying the president.
Yes.
Was silent like this. If today he came out and said, let it pass, it will pass. Now, of course, now no MP would want to pass this law. Apple, I'll tell you, in 2021, you know, our work is to monitor campaign spending. So I remember we had a team in Uyende. So Uyende, the current husband of the speaker, is where he stood. So he shows up at a rally and says, now you the people of Uyende, what can I tell you? Do you understand English? No. Do you even know what is done in Kampala? No. Line up here. So they line up and he gives everyone 5,000, 5,000. Is there anyone who has not got no? Is there anything you want? Is there any question? No, sir. Thank you, there you go. So you see, the point I'm raising that is because of what Winnie just talked about, and Winnie makes a very good point, because she says, she looks at the men and women on the floor of parliament. They look like mannequins. They don't, it's like they are dummies. Even if you hit them, not even on sound. Yeah, they cannot, you cannot even hear them yawn on the floor of parliament. That is how dumb they are. And the reason we get there is this. Because our politics is so commercialized, okay? And because also of the things God does, and I always speak about this and the people can take it the way they want. God gives talents. So if God gave you the talent of basketball playing, maybe he did not give you the talent of playing football. So if he gave you the talent of running, maybe you don't have the talent of acting. If he gave you wisdom to excel in class and get good grades, he may not have given you the talent to make money, which is why professors are not the richest people today. Because politics is so commercialized in Uganda today, the people that can afford to access this money are those that are not good at akiri. Because God did not give them here. He gave them the talent to make money. So you have sent this to parliament. A parliament is a space that needs akiri, needs brains. No wonder, as we are saying, she looks brains, at, yeah, akiri is wisdom, intelligence. This is Swahili word. So that's why we are where we are. And parliament, you see, this parliament and everywhere, they have passed this law. Number one, it has been the leadership. So we are looking at the party in power, the president, to take leadership on this one. But also leadership alone may not push it through without the support of the citizens. Now, those citizens of Uganda are very intelligent. You see, they don't speak your English. But that does not mean they're not geniuses. They are. They have observed over the last 3-4 electoral cycles. They have taken the money. When they take the money, their conditions don't improve. They also have learned that these 10,000, not the 5,000, 2,000 you give me will be gone in 1 week or less or a day. And I stay in the situation I am in. The people today are saying, and we've had some of them saying, that you see, it is actually inconsequential for us to keep accepting these monies from what? From the class. And they're saying what Win is saying. They're saying we need people in parliament that are able to exact oversight. Because we send you there to keep the president in check. But because you don't have the brains to keep him in check, it's instead the president who's checking on you. So in other words, we don't have a voice that gets pressure to bear on the executive to pass budgets and allocate money and direct that money to the areas that the citizens need them most. So until we get there, and the citizens, so what we need now is also like, reciprocal reactions from the citizen, right? To say, yes, President, you are bang on the money. We want you to push this through. And then they should start demanding and demanding and demanding. I know of a country where, in Australia, where the citizens had to go through what they called citizen juries, and they developed their own campaign finance law. And that brought pressure to bear on the executive to quickly enact it.
Thank you, Henry, for your perspectives. Focus on Parliament now takes a short break. When we return, we'll continue the discussion on whether the Ugandan Parliament has the capacity and sufficient political will to pass an election, finance, and campaigning law. See you back shortly.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back. This is the Focus on Parliament show on Civic Space TV. In this segment of Focus on Parliament, we continue to dissect and discuss whether Parliament can pass an election campaign finance law to regulate and also check the question of commercialized politics in the country. Winfred, I am coming to you now. One of the parameters that Henry talked about for such laws is, I think, a reporting mechanism, an effective
disclosure,
reporting mechanism, disclosure, bans, and then the caps.
And reporting.
Yes, and reporting. So we are headed into 2026. Actually, I think now we have barely 2 years, could say a year and some months.
We have about 14
It's
months.
January.
Because remember in
2025.
August, we nominated the MPs. August or September?
August.
August, we nominate the MPs.
2025.
Isn't this August? So next August, so that's
Will
12
be
months
nominations.
now. Nominations begin.
And he previously referenced an example in Nigeria, whereby I think the outgoing parliament passed the exact piece of
But too late.
legislation, albeit late, so it has not been implemented to affect the just concluded presidential and parliamentary elections. Is it feasible to pass such a law now?
First of all, when you look at the laws that have been passed, mostly in this 11th parliament, there is always who is the food to eat, to be eaten. Yes, it is who is it targeting. Yes, so for this law, a discussion coming from Chankwanzi, I want to see it with different lenses, given the different comments, like how Henry said that previously this talk has been there in government, but the top didn't didn't support so much. But right now we can see his support at a time when he's saying so much of foreigners funding opposition, foreigners funding protests, homosexuals doing this and this. And they sit at Chankwanzi and say that we want to introduce this law. And remember, one of the cap is transparency, disclosure. There is also that around fundraising, putting a cap on fundraising, and a ban on fundraising. And when we ask ourselves, mostly who are the funders who have been helping the parties? Who are these people they are saying that we are going to put, if it's putting a ban on fundraising, who are we targeting? At this time, I'm just trying to think out loud on even the statements of the president, and again they come up with this. So, like I've said, that every law has who they are targeting. And in this, I feel they sat there and they were like, because of course they tell us what came out. They don't give us the deeper discussion of it. And I'm just here thinking like, okay, they were like, do you know what? You can see, remember how they were saying Bobby Wine is getting money from where? You remember the time of BCJ? So they sat there and they were like, do you know what? Do you know, for us to silence the opposition, for us to silence this young generation, the Gen Zs who are coming up, for us, do you know what? Let's bring this law. I support what Henry is saying, that we need this law. It has worked. Uganda is not different from any other country. However much there are loopholes of either enforcement, either is it in which country where there is so much of political resistance, is it Kenya, of
Kenya.
that law? Those will be there. But truth is we need it. But again, where is the interest? Where is it coming from? Yes?
So the timing is rather suspect.
Not even the timing. The discussion, the people who are having the discussion, what is their interest? Why now? Why is the president so interested now at the time when he's so much speaking about foreign funding, when he's so much like negatively speaking about foreign funding? Yes, yet even the government is financed by the foreigners, but financing with other like either movements that are raising up, financing of civic space, so like financing of CSOs, civic societies. He always pushes to that. You get it? And I'm not saying that is it, but I'm just thinking out loud. And then, okay, they want to introduce this to Parliament. And I feel, coming from Chankwanzi to Parliament, even if it passed, and they're not ready, is the government ready, is the president ready to have an opinion from other stakeholders? Because I would believe that even NGOs need to have a take in this. Citizens need to be part of it. Would they really have that part of, okay, is there even time for consulting? Would they allow the input of other stakeholders for us to have a good role like the one of Nigeria, they've said? So there are very many different things we look at. And then we go back to the political will. Seriously, we have seen the president also putting in a lot of money in campaigns. He has put in a lot of money. Even before campaigns, he has been putting, like, you know, voting, buying buying us voters. It's not only during the campaigns. Yes? Even him going to us, like, remember the remarks he said at, is it Kalere? When he was coming from where? This place is like this because you voted wrongly.
When just to buttress your point, previously in 2011, in the aftermath of the general election, the president's financial intervention in that election resulted into a national inflation. It had such a strong adverse impact on the economy. You may proceed, just to underscore the point you're making. Yes.
So now, if he's, I am just trying to understand where our dear president is getting the motivation. Yes, it is by the what he's suggesting is really good. That decision they want to bring on board is really good. We need the law, but we also need to understand the motive behind. And even when the law is introduced, are they ready to involve other parties? Even other political parties need to do a contribution to that law for it to be effective. Are they ready? Is government ready to have that transparency, to have that involvement of other people? Or they want to bring, like how they've been bringing other laws in place without consultation. Yes, because anything dies at the initial stage. We have good laws, but with bad implementation. Not because they are really bad, not because people who are supposed to enforce them are bad, but because things were rotting from the beginning. So I still have that question, the motive of the timing, with the words that are coming from the president's mouth, and again, the words coming from other people next to him around financing. And then this law comes, however much it's good, it's something we really need. It's a time we need it, but the timing with the words coming out, and then the people who are going to see it. So you tell me it is almost close to elections. These are MPs who can't boldly speak about the corruption in the Parliament right now. These are MPs who are already, we don't have, I believe 80% people, they lack 80% of trust from the people. Yes, the trust has gone down. Let me just start around corruption, the allegations around corruption. No, for someone to prove that they're not guilty, they need to have welcomed a discussion around corruption. But they have failed. I'll go back to what I gave in the first place when Honorable Sechu was looking for those signatures. You saw how long it takes. And then the president wants to trust this with the parliament, which can't even talk about their own corruption, the allegations around corruption. And they're the people who are going to sit and pass out. Which kind of law is going to come out? Which kind of product is going to come out from that? It's like saying that, okay, let me go and plant beans. And then this is already, the ground right now at Parliament it's a desert. And they're taking a law in the desert. What are we going to, which kind of law is going to come out of that? Because this is a law, first of all, which is going to affect them. Most of them want to come back. What kind of, what are they going to give us? No. It is a good law, we need it. Uganda needs such a law. But this time with the quality of the majority, I'm not saying that all the members of Parliament are, but the majority. So what are we going, which product are we going to get?
So it's a good law for a wrong political class.
Yes, and the wrong timing. So we are going, we shall get something worse that is going to, we might end up having something like, okay, let me stop.
Apollo, yes, building on Winnie's submission, let us continue to examine the urgent need for the law vis-a-vis its practical application. But on the flip side, Cynics are arguing that if that law was to be adopted and implemented in the country, then the government would weaponize it as a tool to clamp down on the political opposition. In a sense that most of the parameters that Henry has cited here can easily be manipulated to project the opposition as an offender of the law, and as such even discredit it or even wholesomely expand it from the legitimate political processes. How do we navigate such loopholes, even as we consider the arguments for it or against it?
I stated in my submission that I don't believe that even if it was introduced, it would get the support it requires for effective implementation. But yes, let me suppose that it is introduced. I don't think, or I don't believe that it favors. It may use it as a weapon against the aspirants who are now coming in to contest against the incumbent. I don't know if that's what you meant.
Yes.
You see, what this legislation is meant to introduce is leveled ground or level ground, such that me who has no money, but I feel I want to contest, I can also have an opportunity to contest for a political office. Well, because there is a limit, I may not even have the money to make up to that limit, that cap, and the incumbent has even much more than he or she needs to of course, push his campaigns. Yes, to some extent it may help those who have the money, who have been in power, who have had time in office. But I don't think it any politician can take that risk. To me, I don't think anyone who is in office can take that risk to create a semblance of a leveled ground during elections.
Because, Apple, I'm just thinking, if we successfully, as a country, adopted such a piece of legislation and implemented it, then consequently, we would need to put in place some sort of impartial body to ensure that there is strict adherence to that law, which is devoid of any political interference. But then, what happens if, for example, a sitting president, the incumbent, now weaponizes that body, as is the case now with all the other independent constitutional bodies, and then aims to target political opponents? For example, they single you out and they say you have flouted this provision, you have overshot beyond the cap, or you did not, for example, maybe make a proper disclosure, whereas not. So,
before Apple comes in, you see, I like the idea she brings, and you also propound of weaponizing. So when I get on the other side, first of all, one of the basic tenets of a law on campaign finance are those disclosures. You must disclose the source of your money. When you look at what Win was trying to put across, it has been the narrative of the regime that nope, and other foreign opposition political parties are funded by
foreigners.
Oh, this is money from homosexuals. So it is very possible, actually, if the provision of disclosure is there, to force NUP to disclose, and NUP will not disclose, then they will have flouted the law.
Yeah, but
so it
Henry,
can actually be weaponized.
But Henry, you know how even other parties have been getting money. The sources of funding before campaigns, that is when the Bagaga Kwagala comes up with a basket and they fund certain political parties. It is that
power. They fund the party in power.
It is that time.
Companies fund the party in power.
Everybody,
all those.
It is that time when the Indian Association of Uganda also makes a contribution for such and such an activity in a political party. So these sources of funding, even for the ruling party, I think they do not qualify, because we would, if we are to have a leveled ground. You've talked of fundraising. That's some form of fundraising. You talked about the law introducing a ban on fundraising. That is one form of fundraising.
They are barring these fundraising where they call a candidate to contribute.
I think it's the Harambe, where the candidate is the one that is contributing.
Yeah, fuel corruption.
Yes.
So I think Henry Muguzi also talked about illicit ways of getting money for politics and campaigns. That is, besides foreign funding, which is a claim that NUP and other political parties are getting foreign money from foreign sources. Even other parties, we know that they also their sources are also not so legit. So that is why I think both sides would not actually support the disclosure.
So there's something they tell us when we go to speak to the party in power about what they think, where they think the opposition is getting money. They tell you that opposition is also getting money from the very companies that fund us. But those companies that fund opposition are only funding them because they know they will not be disclosed. So if there is a law that requires disclosure, those private companies that fund NRM and also fund opposition on the sideline will now stop.
They will pull out.
So when they pull out, you have an opposition without money.
Yes.
Then you win straight. They will not give them money.
Yeah, but again, me I'm looking.
For fear of being closed.
Yes, for fear of disclosure. I see it even on the ruling party. You know that...
the party will receive, you know why it will receive? Because if I am CCC China, I can donate $50,000 to the party. That is fine, and I will disclose. And the government will say, fine, they are the law.
Yeah, but there are other dubious sources.
If CCC declares that I've given their 5,000 to NRA, to NOP, or to FDC, that will be the last contract they will have.
But all in all, Isaac...
They would rather not give.
All in all, Isaac, I think the current political dispensation may not allow a leveled ground for both its opponents or the opposition and the party in government. The current political class would want to always capitalize on the advantage they have, that they still have access to sources of funding, and they are ready to use those monies to entrench and keep their positions. We have often had proposals to introduce even other good legislations, like reintroducing the term limits in our constitution. We have had people who have passionately said they are ready to support and bring and reintroduce such legislations. We have had other proposals to cut the size of parliament, but then you think how the current parliament, like the 11th parliament, such a legislation would go through such a and you have member, and it gets support from such a parliament, because everybody will be saying, if we are going to cut the size of parliament, that's meaning some of us will lose our seats.
But if the caucus says this is our position, go vote like this, will they refuse?
Yeah, but again, if we have seen where the party introduces the legislation, but it is kicked on the floor of parliament, where they see that they have interest, it is blocked even in parliament, because that is where I started from. That you have to interrogate the interests that are in a certain legislation, even before it is brought to parliament, and you have to.
Mr. Apollo, let me ask you something. How many laws have been introduced on the floor of parliament where the president has interest and they've not passed, where he has shown interest?
But then I'm asking, do you think the President Museveni, is ready to support such a law? Do you think he can? Let me ask you. Do you think President Museveni can support a legislation that stops him from using money in an election campaign?
Maybe he has figured out the other way.
No way, he can't.
But in Chakwanzi, you also stated that when he was in Chakwanzi, he was in support of it. But let me say that by the time he accepts, they'll figure out where the loopholes are for them to do what? To play their games. First of all, we have seen the loopholes in the judicial system. You get it? However much good it is. They have already sat and figured out, okay, however much we pass this, we know where we can do what? We can play our games.
I called it a political gimmick.
I think, let me just intervene for a moment to agree with Apple. I think the point he's stressing is that despite the president's flowery rhetoric on that subject, he does not have
the will,
the good political will, and his motivations are not sincere.
That is when I asked, what is the motivation behind? When we get to know the motivation behind him supporting this to come, just know that he will not mind about the other things of the money. Okay, right now let me ask you a question. Like how I asked a question, one question I've asked, is there any law that has come on the floor of parliament where the president has shown interest and it has not passed? I haven't gotten that answer. Two, he has been speaking about homosexual funders funding, it's homosexual bringing in money. He has talked about those things. Doesn't the government of Uganda receive money? I want us to look at what Henry was saying, that the government, funders can give money to government. and the government can disclose. Yes, but they can give money to a political party because they're already funding the government. And I'm trying to also to understand that very well. If they fund government and it's openly that these people are giving money to government, when they fund the political party, there is that thing of not to disclose. So for him, he's saying that, okay, he knows, the president knows that he's in power and he's protected somehow because he's already the one in power. There may be ways he has already seen that if I brought this law, I don't think the president can look at this law and is in support of it and he knows that the level is leveled for both of them. No. The way he speaks right now, it is not leveled.
Can I just give 2 points? The first one. The first one, you need to understand, we know now that one of the reasons why Sudhir Ruparelia lost Crane Bank is because in 2016, he also gave money to Besigye. Every private company that is here knows that if you dare give opposition money, you're going to lose business. You're going to lose. So that is now, I think that should be known. Number two, how does President Museveni finance his campaigns? So in 2021, you see, President Museveni, we discovered, had reached a level where all they do is to develop a budget. Once the budget is there, there are so many companies that are dying to have an opportunity of being seen to have supported his campaigns. So one comes and says, Mr. President, I've taken all the t-shirts, don't worry. Mr. President, with the fuel, don't worry. Mr. President, with the radio, don't worry. Allowances of what? I got it. So the president, this money they're talking about, is the money he gives out in his capacity as head of state, visiting. Also, he campaigns, and after the campaign period has ended, he goes back to being president. In the evening, the elders come. When they come, they get envelopes, 500,000, 300,000. Those ones he's giving now as a president. So those ones are protected by law because he's the president. So his campaign is now, he no longer funds them. There are too many third parties that fund his things. But you, the opposition, you don't have this leverage. So when he brings this law, it's advantage him. Once, because you have to disclose, first of all, you will struggle to have someone supporting you. Everybody fears the same. We have seen what happened to Sibyl. No. So they are there. And if it comes from abroad, then you must declare it. Because if you don't, and they are seeing you use it, then it's an infraction. And therefore, you're going to have to face the law. Because you are using money, we are seeing it, you've not declared it. And if you say this is what it is, they ask, where did it come from? So that alone will constrain the opposition more. And if you saw what we saw with the other provisions, the biggest opposition to the law came from opposition. Actually, NRM candidates were supporting it. But the opposition were like, no, we are dead and buried. If we get to this close, where we get our money from? The president knows it. And lastly, we have known Uganda. The president, the things he likes, he doesn't speak about them. You hear a certain Anita speaking about them, or a certain Raphael Majezi. If you are seeing this guy coming immediately as if he has just been told, go and do it now. Because 5 minutes after he arrived from Chankwan's, he's calling a press conference at a media center and saying, oh, we have talked about this. He mentions it. It means there is interest from the guy at the top, I would imagine.
I don't, well, we can only speculate. We can give our opinions, and anything can happen. But I still don't believe that President Museveni is ready to constrain himself, to shrink his chances of getting as many votes as possible to win power. We know that even in the last campaigns, in 2021, President Museveni got is it 57, 60% vote?
53?
Yeah, 56. 56. And you know very well that we have a margin of 50 plus 1. Then President Museveni cannot take chances to introduce a law that limits chances of participation and getting as much much supporters. And again, another thing is that he wants to command majority in parliament.
You see, the point Apollo is missing is this one. It's about how does President Museveni win? How does he campaign? You see, he's now thinking that without money, he can't win. So his form of spending, Mr. Museveni, is turning more towards what you can struggle to delink from him being legitimate. For example, you know that money is, first of all, NRM receives the biggest chunk of the money that goes for political parties. They receive 80-something%. So they have that kitty there. And then they have the biggest number of legislators that make contributions. So in any way, the money that he sends to the villagers, the 300 for villagers to eat, and vote for him, that one he will continue to send. He will say, from the kitty we got from the Electoral Commission, also from the contributions, this is how. So, and then the envelopes, he will continue. He wins because of those envelopes he gives to in the evening. But those ones he gives out now as the president. So it has become very difficult for us who follow the money in campaigns to delink
what is legitimate.
Yeah, what he spends as a president and what he spends as candidate. It's a problem. So in the evening, the campaign period has ended. Now there's no campaigns. Now I'm back to president. So now come see your president. You come to go to see your president. You get your brown envelope of 500,000. You go back after you vote for him.
Apollo.
Yeah, you get convinced from Henry's opinions that somehow that would send the opposition to a disadvantaged point, and if we stand to benefit, if we stand to sanitize our politics, everyone would welcome such a legislation. But like you said, the timing, yes, I think if it is from Henry's point of view, then the timing is right, because at a time when you see the youth who make a bigger chunk of the population all out protesting and showing powering out their anger just 1 year and a few months to elections, then if you are NRM or President Museveni, you must find means of winning, of being assured of victory. So if it puts him in a position of advantage, I think it is the time possibly he should be bringing it. But I think the bottom line is it good for democracy to have such a legislation? If it is good, then it is welcome.
Thank you, Apollo. Henry, even as you consider your closing remarks on the program, I want you to help us draw a correlation between the cost of conducting elections in Uganda and the aspect of campaign financing. Yeah,
thank you very much. So organizing and conducting elections in Uganda is quite a drain on the budget. I think it's now the budget of the Electoral Commission is close to 1 trillion shillings, and our surveys have proven that every time Uganda concludes an election, its GDP dips, which brings you to question whether we have just, by going for elections, we've just taken on an enterprise that is so expensive for us to maintain. But on the other hand, when you look at the alternative, because if elections are becoming expensive, on the other side there is war. In a country that has never tested peaceful transfer of power, you would say, okay, let us continue spending and have peace, than not spending and have a botched up election, and then we go into turmoil. So I think we have to bear that burden as citizens of conducting elections every 5 years. The beauty is it comes even after 5 years. So we have like 4 more years to recuperate. And then, you know, we support. But also, lastly, I think it's important for citizens to understand that democracy cannot function if citizens are not able to hold government to account. And you hold government to account by asking questions, by taking interest in what it is doing, and making your feelings known. If you are unhappy about something, you need to express it, regardless of the context. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry, for your thoughts on the program. Winfred, your concluding remarks.
I'll also encourage citizens to pick interest in really understanding these because we are close to elections. We are close to elections, and we don't want to be caught up unaware, because when this law is in place, we are not going to say that it's only going to affect the politicians. When we have a bad law, it affects everyone. Yes, even as government says to proposes to introduce the law, let's pick interest so that we are involved, because a bad law will affect all of us, and a good law will be good for all of us. And lastly, as we look at, I will still also as I close, I will still talk about the leaders, fellow citizens. You know, some of us are believers, and we say that. There's a saying, and I've heard some politicians use it, or even the president, the leadership comes from God. Yes? So we also have citizens need to know that, no, yes, leadership comes from God, but not every leader comes from God. Yes? Because it's still the same Bible everywhere. Where God sits, they tell us even Satan sits there. So let's be very analytical. As we look at 2026 coming, let's know that we are choosing either to suffer more, not to have infrastructures, not to have good roads, not to have good schools for our children, the education to still stay bad, just to have bad leaders who will not even talk about the allegations of corruption in Parliament. So let's be focused. Let's not fear if we are having those members who have been there for more years and they have not done anything, and they come to us telling us, you know, I've been your leader. I was elected by God. No, God doesn't elect bad leaders. Every bad leader you're having, meaning that one is a leader who came from Satan, not from God. God puts only good leaders there. So let's have our eyes focused. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Winfred, for sharing your thoughts with us on the program. Apple,
Yes, please.
your closing remarks.
Whether the proponents of the proposed legislation are serious or not serious, I think we should not only be excited about this particular legislation coming to only limit or regulate money in politics, because this is this is part of the other electoral laws that we have been demanding for. I think, like Muguzi Henry said, if it is true that government is interested in this bill, then let's all demand for all other electoral reforms to be introduced, not only this particular law, because we have, people have been demanding for legislation on how the Electoral Commission is constituted. They have been demanding for electoral amendment on laws relating to how security, the role of security agencies during elections. So what I'm saying, people should, Ugandans should demand for a comprehensive reform on electoral laws, not only introducing them in a piecemeal, specifically this particular law we are talking about. So I implore everyone there to be vigilant and follow up on the electoral reforms that are being now mooted by the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, and make sure that this time around It is not like how it was in 2017 when the main issue was age limit, but they brought it in a way that all the people were excited. There were other laws that were brought alongside, and they were dropped in the end, and only the age limit did go through, and few others. So I think it's very important that people should demand for a comprehensive reform on electoral laws, not only looking at this that is looking at campaign financing.
Thank you, Apollo, for sharing your perspectives with us on the program. Once again, much appreciation to you, Mr. Muguzi Henry, Ms. Winfred Mugambwa, and Mr. Apollo Tusiime for your able participation on the program, respecting today's topic for discussion.
Thank you.
Once again, much appreciation to our viewership for keeping us company from the start up to the conclusion of this program. Much appreciation to the production unit for keeping us live on air. Our dear viewers, you can engage us on our various social media platforms. We are on X, we are on Facebook, we are on YouTube, where you can subscribe and also watch this program. This is the Focus on Parliament show on Civic Space TV. We'll see you next time. Be blessed.